when I was 10 years old, and my father asked at the table of his 7 children, what are you going to do in the world now? And I said, at the top of my head, I never want to see children cry again. And my father said, then you better get stuck in.
Children don't have safety when they're on the street at all, and that's a horrible thing. They get captured. I mean, they have the worst time of all because they're used and abused.
Hello, there's fresh hope for the world's street children with the launch of a new group dedicated to ending their plight. Last night, John Major held a special reception at 10 Downing Street to mark his support for the Consortium for Street Children. Around 30 different British-based organisations, including lots of children's charities, have joined together to form the Consortium.
See, when you are in India, you are quite immune to all these problems around you because it exists so much in the society. You see beggars, you see children on the streets. It becomes a part of the scene. You really don't notice it. And having lived here for a couple of years, you realize that how different the world can be, how different things can be, how people are actually evolved, how people have rights and things. In India, you take them as a scene, that it is there, and you don't really, and you feel it has been there, it is going to be there, and you are part of it, and you don't really look at it like, oh, it shouldn't be, this is awful. But when you live here, since you don't see all that around you, you realize that it doesn't have to be like that. You can change it, you can do something about it.
I had the job of bringing the different members to start thinking of working together. That was very important because most charities don't like to work with anybody else. They like to do their own thing.
I had a series of informal meetings with people who were also working with street children, and the view was that we were working in isolation and it would be very helpful if we could get together and talk about our experiences.
There were all these small organisations working with other even smaller organisations all across the world, but with offices in London. Everybody doing their own thing, nobody sharing any knowledge or methodologies, and everybody jealously guarding their own patch instead of coming together and trying to share a bit more, speak with one voice and actually see if they couldn't achieve more by working more closely together.
It was quite difficult to get them to see that it was important for them to work together because more work could be done that way.
Through a lot of hard work and quite a lot of perseverance, we managed to get the consortium launched in number 10 Downing Street by Sir John Major. It now has a considerable amount of expertise, and we're hopeful for the next 5 years that it will grow and develop and continue to work very strongly on behalf of the rights of street children.
Director of the Consortium for Street Children. I was the first director between late 1994 and I think 1999. When I was with the Consortium, we had our work had 2 strands. One was to develop an advocacy arm, and the other was to develop practice. So we undertook a number of research projects that began to set the ground for what has happened since.
A constant for us that has been incredibly important has been our work on advocacy. And by advocacy, we mean helping to change the policies globally at national and global level to improve the rights of street children. The biggest achievement has been the creation of something called a general comment, which we worked on with the United Nations, and it appends the Convention on the Rights of the Child.
The work of the Consortium of Street Children is varied. We work at the international level, working with the United Nations and other regional bodies to make sure that they're including in their human rights work and in their treaty work to make sure that the street children are not forgotten and are placed at the forefront of their agenda. This legal guidance that's issued now to governments tells them explicitly in education, in health, in how to ensure registration of street children, how to ensure that street children are not locked away, are not treated worse than any other child, but instead are able to access their rights fully.
They gave me less than 2 weeks. I mean, I had like a few days to do this logo before they had their grand meeting to decide, and another company hadn't managed to come up with it in months. The logo actually came to me quite easily because it's an umbrella organisation, the Consortium for Street Children, and an umbrella also represents protection, which is what they do, or were going to do. And so I thought of sketching a very almost childlike umbrella with obviously children in it, and I wanted the children to be obviously representative of all shapes, sizes, races, etc. So the children I drew were very stick-like, childlike children under this umbrella, holding hands, because the unity of street children, immediately I realized this was a very exciting part of what goes on. And finally, a little bit of street, so I put a little pedestrian crossing-y kind of thing at the bottom, and that was the logo.
When we started the Consortium for Street Children, there were many challenges. One of the main challenges at that point was just the definition, because children were playing on the streets, living on the streets, and we didn't know if the word just street children worked. Then we came up with finally we coined the term street connected children, which is what we use now. There was also the challenge of making governments talk to us about street children, because they all believed there were no street children. So just to get that going, it took us many, many years. In fact, now that we have the general comment in the UN Rights of the Child, now we can go to the governments and we can actually try and implement this general comment. So our successes in the last few years have been getting into the Child Rights Committee, then getting onto the UN Human Rights Council session. And now finally we've got a 3-minute slot in the UN Economic and Social Council, which is absolutely phenomenal. There will be many more challenges as we go along. Fundraising is one of the big ones that has always been there. But I believe we've tackled that issue as well. My congratulations to the team for doing such good work, and in the future I hope we are able to put street children on the map and we are able to mainstream them, and the consortium is geared to do that.